Welcome to Weaving Trust Podcast. Hi, I'm Kathy Doherty, the People Navigator, and I help businesses avoid hiring and holding on to horrible people. This podcast is a space for honest, human-centred conversations about how trust shapes the way we lead, work and live together. I'm so looking forward to you hearing the stories that each guest has to share, and each episode will be slightly different because as we weave our way through the journey of my guest, we may go off on a few tangents here and there, but that adds to the enrichment of the tapestry that we're weaving. I hope you enjoy this journey as much as I did. Welcome, Stuart, to Weaving Trust. Let's do that again. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of that.
Oh yeah. Oh, no, if that's not the intro you keep on the episode, I'm going to be disappointed.
Welcome to Weaving Trust Podcast.
Hi.
Thank you, Stuart. So, just before we get started, do you want to give a little bit of an overview in your own words as to who you are?
Ooh, interesting. I am
remembering that this is going to be on YouTube and the likes.
Oh yeah, remembering people are going to see this. So hi, I'm Stuart. I am, as you know, Kathy, a solid bag of crazy. I'm involved in about 15 different things at any given time.
Only 15.
Only 15 when I'm taking a bit of time off. So I suppose at the minute, fundamentally, the three major things I'm involved in. I'm the sales director of Microgrid, as you know, so I'm involved in decentralized energy distribution. I do a lot of that, sort of technical sales for sort of medium, large size enterprises. I also then have the Net Zero Hero, which is the online platform that we're launching for aggregating ESG suppliers and making sure that people can find good solutions for sort of net zero economy in the next couple of years. And then the Unfounded, which where I brought my very nice neon sign to the show. I've had to turn it way down because if I turned that up, it would just blind the camera.
And it's very impressive.
I like it. I need it in everything that I'm taking a photo of because I'm like, I paid a lot of money for this. And so that is fundamentally, first of all, it was a book. And it is a training course for young entrepreneurs, but well, not even young entrepreneurs in an age, but people who are like early stage founders who are kind of going out into the world of doing their own thing, and just trying to head off as much of the. This as well as me, but the amount of crazy things that happen when you try to start a business if you're not well prepared, and trying to cover as much of that as possible. So there's a book, there's a school community coming, and there's a number of offensive blog posts on LinkedIn that keep people loosely entertained.
Are you the principal or headmaster of the school, or are you the?
I am the headmaster. Unfortunately, I might also be the HR of it as well.
The demon headmaster.
Yeah, the problem child who somehow got a promotion. So yeah, that's it. So between education and decentralized energy and setting up and coding SaaS platforms, apart from that, what else is there? Two very small children who keep me awake every hour that God sends, and yeah,
not that
just
you sleep
general.
much anyway.
No, I never did. But I'm apart from that, just a general reprobate musician at the weekend. We're sitting in a recording studio now doing this. You've seen the wall of guitars.
Yeah.
So that's I live a wide and varied existence, I think, is a fair assessment of me.
So what out of those do you think really helps ground you in life, if that's possible for you?
Grounding, that's an interesting. Honestly, the thing that grounds me in the world is actually none of these things. Well, apart from family, right? Like being home with the kids and that. But like the thing that, generally speaking, from when I leave the house in the morning to when I get home at night, my life is an unmitigated tornado of chaos and three different competing interests and a lot of people with a lot of questions. I love the Unfounded stuff because I love being able to kind of. I've always had like project people, like people in my life I work with for like training or nutrition or business advice generally. So this like really fits into the me space where like I get to be my version of myself, but grounding is generally for me. It's actually you know this about me, but I'm an avid walker. So like last night, I left the house at about 9 o'clock last night. The kids went down to sleep. You know, Lena was at home with them. And I went out for like 3.5 hours, just went for a walk. And I didn't come home till like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh, I can go to sleep now. And then the cycle returns again, you
Yeah.
know. So grounding is being outside for me. But out of the businesses, Unfounded, because I get to be me and talk gibberish, which is
completely yourself. And anyone who is connected to Stuart on LinkedIn, which is where I'm connected to you on, as well as in the real world, you will see honest truthfulness in his commentary, which includes all sorts of variations on that.
direct opinions given directly.
Without any BS.
What's the point? Like, I don't have time for BS. This is I actually we do a lot of work with the microgrid stuff. We get a lot of our suppliers from Eastern Europe, right? Now, for people who don't have a lot of exposure to Eastern Europeans, an incredibly direct communication style, right? Like they will, I think as Northern Irish people, we say 10 words when there could be 5. And it's
we say bye when we're hanging up the phone.
Yeah. We will take time to tell this grand Lord of the Rings grade story to say I had a coffee this morning. Whereas like generally speaking, Eastern European folk just don't do that. They're so succinct and so direct. And obviously my wife's from Lithuania, and it's so funny. We're during the week. One of the guys in Lugh, we're dealing with one of our suppliers in Poland, and he's constantly being like, "That guy is such an asshole. He's so rude." And I'm sitting there being like, "No, he's not. He's just being direct. He's telling you the information you need without any fluff." And it's amazing how often, because my home life is just filled with that, because Lena, like I said, is a very direct communicator. And a lot of that has bled into my life, and I think so many people think I'm just so rude all the time.
I remember very early on in my first proper HR type of job, and there was somebody in the accounts department, and she was from Eastern Europe, and there was a whole host of issues with the rest of the team thinking she was incredibly rude. And I was new in, and I got to know her, and I then was able to explain to the rest, no, she is not rude. It's just that's her style from where she is from. And so we approach things differently. She approaches things differently, but she's not being rude. She's just being direct.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, and that like it's very funny. Like at the home life where I have this, like, as anyone who knows me on a personal level, I have a number of people who there's one person in particular, and I'm on a long-term not revenge plot. It's going to be incredibly funny. It's very Irish black humor, right? It's that like really completely off the wall, complicated plan that we are putting in place, just for the fun, right? Just because it's entertaining to us. And Lena, she actually said to me just before I came out the house today, and she was like, "I think I'm starting to get black humor," and I'm like, I was like, "But why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "It's just fun. It's just genuinely entertaining to us." But again, she looks at me going like, "You're putting a lot of effort into this." And I'm like, "Yes, I am, because the payoff is incredible." You know.
Right. So in everything that we do, and all your different ventures and your different approaches, and particularly with the likes of the Unfounded, trust is a really big thing. It's a big thing in every relationship that we have, and we've seen on the world stage and locally the erosion of trust in various people in leadership roles and in day-to-day interactions, and the really bad press that business owners and business leaders get, because when people think of that, they think of the big corporates looking after their shareholders and not looking after people. So thinking about that kind of thing, and from your own personal experience, how has your own experience shaped your thoughts on trust and how you think about trust?
Oh I'll start with an easy one, why don't you?
Okay, well, how about what
No,
what do you
no,
what does
we're
trust
gonna
mean? We're going
we're
right
gonna
in.
climb this Everest. First warm-up question. I know. I mean, there's there's a couple of sides to that question. I suppose I'm a very binary creature, right? Like I'm very little fluff when it comes to the big topics. I like to kind of distill them down into simple kind of aphorisms more than anything. So like at a personal level in my day-to-day interactions with people and how I, interact myself, there's two things that give trust, get trust, get respect and maintain long-term relationships. Number one is knowing you don't know everything and to not pretend that you do. So with that, I think there's this genuine fear in the modern day of being able to say, I don't know. Like if I'm doing a technical meeting, particularly the microgrid stuff can be very technical. And occasionally I get stumped, right? Like I don't know everything. We've got much better electrical engineers behind me, much more technical heads than me. And I'm never afraid to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. And the number of times when I'm working with people who are selling to us, and you can tell they don't know the answer, but they're just kind of, they're just BSing their way through an answer.
Yeah.
And instantly I not only do I go, right, well, that wasn't right, but it also then makes me second guess everything you told me with confidence before, because I don't know if you actually know, you're just very good at saying a thing. But then the other bit, and this is paramount, this is something I have, it's in the book actually, but it's something I've written at the top of every whiteboard of every office I've ever owned, which is just DWYSYWD, which you will know as, you don't know this. Right. No, dead simple. So it's do what you say you will do. Right. And that's it. And that is it. Right. And for me, trust is built and destroyed on the back of that principle. Obviously, like business operations, things go bad, plans change, life happens, right? But in the main, do what you say you will do. And if those plans have to change because of the real world, own it, be accountable for it, and get ahead of that problem. I remember I was managing a guy, horrendous at his paperwork, right? Just couldn't get a report in, and it was causing major problems sort of downstream. And it was a case of like, he said, right, you have that for me at 10, and then if at 11 o'clock I don't have it, I've got the customer downstream giving me jip. Because this guy has not done the thing that empowers me to do. But if he tells me at 9:30, I'm not going to have that ready for you, then I can get ahead of it with the customer and I can say, look, I know I said 10 o'clock to you, but look, it's going to push out a wee bit because I've just heard, but I'll keep you in the loop, right?
Yep.
Open communication and doing what you said is it, right? And when people repeatedly let down on that, and that comes back to, the bigger question of business leaders, politicians, the Andrew formerly known as Prince, all of these things, right? Is they put out this corporate image, right? This is what we're about, this, we do this, we are entirely supportive of this. But then all of their behaviors behind that don't reflect that. And when we all know that a large corporate's main concern is shareholder, like that is it. And we need to stop pretending that, Microsoft or BP or, these massive companies actually have customer interests as a primary focus. They need to have it as a big focus, but they need to make sure that the customer is happy so that the shareholders get value. So they're always slightly ahead of customer. But again, it's whenever their messaging doesn't reflect their actions that trust is disintegrated. So you just got to be honest and repeatedly communicating. Politics is a completely different thing because, we're not doing that today.
No,
We'll be
no,
on
we're
it.
not. We're not doing because this would last a very long
Oh
time.
God, yeah, absolutely. But does that answer it?
It does indeed. So, what about you then in terms of when maybe because we've all, at some point in our lives, we've been let down by somebody, or trust has been affected. And can you think about maybe a life lesson for you and what that meant to you?
You know
And
what you're asking here. I know you know what you're asking here. You mean the time I had a director £30,000 from the company? That one?
that might be an interesting one to explore,
Well,
or another.
yeah. I mean, but before that, the again, like, I mean, we've had a disaster we've had a number of disasters over setting up the Lugh thing in particular. It's been all manner of things, and it's always fallen down in like when I think of the issue with the director that ultimately left the company. Long before we got to that stage, there was back to the do what you said you will do thing. Is, you know, there was just this absolute, you know, vacuous space where things weren't getting done, things weren't getting delivered. You know, there was a lot of intricate communication patterns, let's put it that way. What was being said at a board level was not being reflected on the one-on-one communications between one director and, say, you know, people were getting singled out, and there was back channel communication and all this stuff going on. And there was personality differences as well to go alongside that. You know, I can think of it. I mean, foundationally, myself and aforementioned didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's fine. That's something that can be overcome, and I think that's healthy. I do actually think it's very healthy for directors to have differences of opinions and understanding. You know, with, as long as the common goal is to move to move the company forward, that's a healthy place to be. But then over time, that started to become into personal attacks, people showing up at my house, you know, when I wasn't there, you know, with the young kids in the house. So that became a very interesting time.
So
lessons
learned. Were there things that, you know, you could have spotted earlier and done something about, or what would say if a similar situation was to arise?
Well, if it were to rise again, I suppose this person was brought into the company on recommendation of a few people we knew and trusted, and a glowing CV. Number one, if this were to happen again, if somebody else was going to come into the board, vesting schedules straight away. Like, we would be very, very adamant that, you know, taking up shareholding would be incumbent on performing duties and, you know, having a layered approach there. And then just generally, it's a very sad thing to have to say, but I think if I was getting into business with somebody now who I didn't know very well, like you know, 10 years of history, and they couldn't bring a very specialist skill set that I couldn't do myself, I would be very slow to do it. I think you have to assume that everybody new is trying to steal your lunch money, which is kind of a sad thing to have to say. I mean, that's the kind of once bitten, twice shy, but not to say not to get into it, but have the protections in place. I think, particularly if you're getting into a partnership arrangement, and say, like, you know, say it is something like the Net Zero Hero, the SaaS platform we're building. It's my IP. I've done the coding with myself and a friend who is a coder. I've known him for a long time. I've worked with him, so I don't need that level of protection. I trust what is there. But if somebody were to come in and it was an investment with a point of view of shareholding, there would be a lot of steps I would build in along the ways to protect, you know, IP, to protect the people who are around it. Because I think you may agree with me, disagree with me. I think it's actually easier to get divorced from somebody than it is to get somebody out of a business. You know, I think there's so many loopholes involved in that process. You know, we've experienced them in Lugh. And I've been divorced, and it was exceptionally easier to actually do that, and a lot less time involved as well.
I think the key thing with any business relationship is, even for friends that you've known a long time,
Mm.
is to have those legal agreements in place that should life change, should circumstance, which is life, circumstances change. Certainly recall a client who, this was many years ago, was brought their partner, their spouse into the business, but decided that they didn't need an agreement. And then that relationship broke up. And because they
No,
didn't have any legal agreements in place regarding the business relationship and all of that,
yep.
it was horrendous for them in terms of going through that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think with to sort of caveat in that, so where I said like the other developer is a friend and we don't have like a thing. He doesn't want to take up a shareholding at all, right? And I said to him, I said, look, he's going to take a percentage off the sales. He has his own sort of development bit he does on the side. So I said, look, we're going to put some. It's a very loose agreement, but it's like you're going to take 10% of the net profit. Because that, and it's, I retain the shareholding, but he's just going to have to invoice me. Now, am I going to chase him for invoices? Not really. But he won't, at the same time, I'll say, look, throw those in, buddy, because you're owed a bit of money here. And it's a very, very loose agreement. To bring someone in as a shareholder, again, heads of terms, things like that, but have to be done. Bad lever provisions, all of these things. And then, but somebody new you don't know, I think vesting schedules, that was our big learning, was that the person came in based on good, strong recommendations from people I know and trust very, very well. And then once you peer behind the curtain, once you got to Oz, and you suddenly realized, well, we've done a mistake here. And like I said, extricating yourself from that is incredibly difficult, an incredibly difficult process, particularly when one party doesn't want to play. It just becomes unmitigated. And you as a startup, you don't have time, you don't really have the budget, you don't have the revenue to sort of justify the legal bills. And suddenly you're just going...
Certainly not when the likes of, say, to begin even handling those sorts of things, any commercial lawyer or whatever would be looking for like a 15 grand upfront payment, to deal with things. So imagine as a startup,
Absolutely horrific, and you're begging, stealing, and borrowing. They're trying to keep the lights on. But at the same time, I talk about this at the tail end of the book, actually, because the one thing out of the back of that whole experience, assuming we're at the back of it, right? There's still wee bits to tidy, but I would genuinely actually thank her, to be honest, because we got sort of halfway through it. And honestly, the teaching that was given to us by that experience, and also how it took the rest of the team, we developed so much testicular fortitude, if you want, like we just... Yes. But as a unit, we got so tight because we had to be. The only way we were surviving, if we did, well, suddenly the wiggle room was gone, right? We didn't have it. We just had to plow on and get stuff done. And that took a lot out of us. We were stressed people. There was times I thought it was lights out for it, which would have been a shame, would have been a real shame. But we bond, and I think no two people broke on the same day, but we all broke to one degree or another. And like the day I broke, Andrew was there to pick me up. If Paul was having a bad day, and we just kind of came around together and did what we had to do. So we learned a lot. But we also learned a lot about, not that we don't trust people, we still have to trust people, and we are trust first. But we also are just a little bit more wary of strangers. You know what I mean? Like, we're a bit more stranger danger about life now.
I was going to say stranger danger. What did your parents teach you growing up? Don't take sweets from a stranger, all those sorts of things.
I don't think Invest and I do that course, but we should.
Or maybe you should, as part of the Unfounded.
Oh, it is part of the course, the whole thing. So you'll enjoy it, I think.
So thinking about all of that, how would you, I mean, like, so you were there for each other when you had your broken moments, when each of you took your dip, the others were there. But how do you go about building trust then, especially, you know, you still got other business relationships while this is going on. You're still trying to develop other business relationships while this is going on. You know, how did you manage, or how do you continue to manage that while you're still trying to deal with the disappointment, shall we say, of that situation, and not let it tarnish your view of others?
Yeah. Please hold while I get a bottle of water. Where is it? It was sitting just out of sight. I just need to go grab it. Okay. Well, yeah, no, I mean, look, I mean, that's been reality, right? And I mean,
because I know there are many who would go through that and then just shut down after and just kind of go, I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, like, those days happened, right? I mean, I mean, we see each other at the net walking. You know, we go out for a walk once in a while, and even in the middle of all of that, and I'm not a big fan of, you know, stiff upper lip, put a brave face on it. I think that's a terrible way to do life, right? But that's, I think that the analogy there only works in your personal life. I think, you know, you have to have your support groups and your networks, and you got to build those things in the background. You got to have those there. And my friend Matt, who you briefly met when we were fixing the theme thing, like he's a rock star for me, because he helps me with the Unfounded stuff. But he is my personal agony aunt in a lot of ways. Like, you know, whenever I'm really going through it, you know, me and Matt will go for a walk, we'll talk, and I'll just vent on what's going on, because again, he's got that level of disconnect from everything I'm doing. And at the same time, you know, in his personal life, he has a lot of stuff going on. He vents with me, right? And we have this like little sort of like quasi one-on-one support group. You have to have some release. And I think it's actually almost important to have that away from your family and away from your business as well. Because then when I go into work, like I said, I'm nurturing partnerships. I'm doing some work in India. I'm doing some work in Poland. I'm doing work. I've got suppliers in Lithuania. I'm all over the place. And so even while that was going on, the next day I have to be on a call about, you know, some of the stuff we're doing out in Lithuania. I can't let them know that. They can't know that. Like, if it's going to affect what we're doing, then yes, they need to know. That's an honesty thing. But if you know, at the same time trying to build the business, I have to have the professional image on. I've got to be nailing it for 45 minutes or an hour of a call, and then going off and dealing with the emotionally tragic stuff that's happening in terms of, you're coming off a call and, you know, you're seeing in the bottom right, you're getting notifications from the solicitors and you're getting this, that, and the other. You can't deal with it. It's not, you know, and you have to be able to segregate.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing, is that just because you're burnt by one jackass or two jackasses, I hear they hunt in packs sometimes. But you, at the same time, you can't let that affect going into the next business opportunity or the next, you know, whatever. You have to take it at face value. You've got to be smart, and you've got to play with your head up and make sure that if something, you know, walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. You know, so have your head screwed on about these things, be a bit street smart, but at the same time, when you've got to build relationships, you've got to build relationships. And so we continue doing that. And again, I just the same measure of, do these people do what they say they're going to do, and do they pretend that they know much more than they do? I make a judgment call on those guys. I said, back to the last question, I didn't make a judgment call on that person as they came in. I did genuinely, in hindsight, I was like, I did think there was something sat strange with me when we met, you know, when we were going through the initial sort of onboarding. But
as my sister says, there's just something funny about them. I don't know what it is, but there's just something funny about them, and it's her spidey senses just picking up on something.
Oh, Well, absolutely. I mean, and the thing was that got overridden by number one, a genuine world class CV,
Mm-hmm.
and two people that I knew and trusted, sort of semi vouching for them or saying, absolutely, come with a lot of gravitas. And so that I just put it down to, just me picking it up wrong. You know what I mean? And in terms of,
You
but
try to
the two,
rationalize it out of,
yeah,
though
and
that's feeling.
the spidey sense for me, as we kind of joke about it, but like what that effectively is, like I know the kind of neuroscience behind that, like that, what that is your subconscious. Like you build up all these bits of information about people, like that and trust, and
Yeah.
whereas you're observing them with your conscious mind and you're listening to them, your subconscious is picking up on so many other things, like thousands of other metrics, from intonation of voice, turns of phrases, body language, all these myriad of things, and that forms something in your subconscious that goes, don't like it, and you don't know what it is because you're not consciously observing it. So I'm a firm believer in the spidey sense, certainly much more after the last year of my life. Spidey sense will be listened when it's tickled.
I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize as well that when they refer somebody, when they make a recommendation or a referral, they're putting their own reputation on the line as well, is that they are effectively vouching for that person. So if you're not prepared to, if you don't realize that, it can be a bit difficult, shall we say, in terms of those future relationships as well.
Oh, that's it. I mean, I do make quite a lot of introductions and recommendations to people, but it's a limited pool of people I put forward. You know, I mean, there's if opportunity arises, but if there's someone I like, if I'm on the fence even about someone, my introduction will go, look, I know a guy who does this. I met them at whatever I met them at. I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you, I've never worked with them, but I'll certainly pass you the number, make the introduction, and you can make up your own mind. But there's other people I'm like, look, 100% would let them look after my kids, go and work, and I think it's important to caveat that, because I think in hindsight, the guys who made those recommendations about this were pretty put out when they heard out what was going on. They felt pretty bad. Because I think
it can be a betrayal of them, that they've made the recommendation. There's that whole then the trust for them with that individual, and you can also begin questioning your own judgment in terms of these things as well.
And I think at a low level, one of them in particular was worried about my reaction. I mean, because they knew how, on the face of it, like we met up loads of times during that was happening, and I was shiny happy person having fun, but in the background I was going to kill dead things. Like I was, particularly when someone shows up to your house, that's a different argument.
Yes.
But I think they were, and people knew me well enough, and they're like, I put this person in Stuart's path. They thought, I was going to go sort of Liam Neeson on it, but
you do have a particular set of skills, but you may not choose to use them at this moment in time.
Let's find out in next week's episode. Like, oh dear, you can't air that. Like, just like, was he threatening violence? It just seems. So we'll look back on this in 5 years' time when my Netflix documentary comes out.
The signs were there. The signs were there.
He no, not even the signs. He explicitly told us.
The straight talker just told us.
Oh God!
And we laughed it off.
I hope people get my sense of humor when they see this.
That was why it was important to have the video and the audio recorded. Right. So then, how do you then work on building trust between different people? Between people you want to work together that may not know each other. Do you have any influence in that, or do you try to influence that, or leave it up to them?
In the main, I like to think that everybody's a grown up. That way, like in the first stage, if I'm, again, with some of the stuff, particularly in Lugh and Net Zero, there are people from kind of disparate sides of things who don't work together, who maybe I know everybody involved, and I say, right, everybody mesh together. And that can be challenging. Again, I think the almost similar to the stuff that's happening with some of our suppliers out in Eastern Europe, is that you do get communication differences. You do get, and particularly if if you have two people who know each other pretty well, and then somebody new comes in who doesn't know, who's not up to speed for on the sort, they're not as deep a relationship with either of the other people, that can be difficult. I certainly don't agree with Pizza Fridays. I think those are terrible ideas. But and I hate nothing more than a formalized icebreaker.
What, the cringe? The cringe.
Let's go round the room. No, let's go for a pint. But again, like almost, but within that, if things are starting to fracture, I suppose that's the point that I would get involved. And to me, I'm incredibly Eastern European in how I do it, is I will just drag everybody into a room, and I'll be like, right. I mean, I'm not going to gossip. I'm not going to say who said what, but get everybody together and say, look, let's just cards on the table this for the next hour. Nobody gets to fall out with each other on the back end of this conversation, but there's stuff going on that is not helping. Let's work out where it's fallen down, because and again, I'm always concerned people see me as incredibly aggressive when I do this. I love doing it over a walk, by the way, as well, is bringing people who have a problem, who don't know each other. It's just go for a walk for an hour. I cannot explain how much stuff can get done when you just put people who don't know each other on a path and you go somewhere. Is it just talk to each other? I mean, look, again, like it just, nobody can get angry, because you can't get angry with someone while you're walking beside them. It's really hard to do,
because you're not face on, so you're beside, as opposed to a confrontational kind of stance, and that's
the body language is progressive. Everybody wants to work together, and when you take it out of a formal, if it's a formal working relationship that you're trying to do, but you want people to get on and trust each other and learn a bit about each other, going for a walk and talking to each other and taking the formality out of the process is very important. I think we're very quick, particularly in business, to forget that behind the position is an actual person. And if you get to learn the person, then you get wee snippets, and that doesn't happen overnight. Like, trust doesn't build overnight, particularly with complete strangers. Some people are very adverse to. I've worked with some people who genuinely, after 4 years of working with them, I knew nothing about them, because that's how they communicated. They didn't want to tell me about their personal life. They didn't want to tell me about their family or what they did at the weekend. They were there to earn a living, right? And that was it. And they didn't care at all if I liked them. They didn't give a rat's, right? And that's fine. And you see, when you identify that with people, and then you can communicate with them on their style, it requires a certain amount of empathy. But when you learn somebody, I think of one tech guy I worked with in one of the telecoms places. I'm not going to name him, but because no chance he's watching this, but someone might know him. And like 3 years before it was the middle of COVID before he finally had a conversation with me. And we used to work for 8 hours. There was some days during COVID, it was just me and him in the office. I didn't get furloughed, and he would sit for 8 hours and he wouldn't say a word. And I mean nothing. But like everybody else, there was like maybe 2 other people, I think it was 4 or 5 were allowed in at any time. And we'd have chatted away and we were doing that, and he just couldn't care. Could not care. And then like one day it was just me and him in the office. He started talking to me about his car. Turns out he loved his car. He had a nice car. It was a Mustang. It was a lovely car. And then it just broke that, this was this thing. If you try and force people to trust, everyone's got a communication style and understanding how to get the super chatty guy to work with the, deeply
More the
autistic tech
introvert.
guy who
Yeah,
doesn't want, who's, borderline nonverbal. And
yeah,
especially in the tech sector, there's a lot of guys like
yeah,
that who are deeply talented,
yeah.
but don't socialize that way. And if you
Mhm.
can't identify that and get the, and I think trust is built on communicating with someone the way they want to be communicated to. I think,
Mhm.
but if everybody's game for it, go for a walk, have a pint, do something outside of the formal setting,
Yeah,
but take the time to do it during formal time. You know what I mean? I love having a terrible meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning outside
yeah.
because people, for a start, it catches them off guard because it's not where they expected to have a meeting. And plus, they're getting an hour out from the office, which always feels great. No matter what it is, everyone will love you for that. You know?
It always feels like you're playing hooky, if you're not in the office when you're meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And
you're
and
still
it
doing
keeps
business.
and it keeps people's guard down. But I mean, I think
Yeah,
people, depending on seniority, communication, all of these different, competing
yeah,
things, people can have their guard up. As soon as they walk into the office, they can put their guard up.
yeah,
So if you want to get someone's guard down, actually get to know them and get to trust them and how they want to work,
yeah,
take it offline, take it outside, take it away from the formalized environment, because in a formal environment, people are naturally formal. Um, so I don't know. I think I've waxed lyrical far too much on that point, but you know what I mean.
Oh yes, I love a walking meeting. Any
Well,
opportunity to meet outside, anytime I've had to have difficult conversations that aren't part of a formal process, I will always try to get people outdoors to have those conversations, because
I had it.
people will open up because they're not going to be overheard by people they may not want to
Yeah.
hear what they've got to say, but also it's not the goldfish bowl of others looking in going, oh, what are they talking
Oh,
about?
yeah,
What's
yeah,
going on
yeah.
there?
Take a
Yeah.
minute. I mean, and I even remembered one difficult one I can think of where I was coming into a telecoms place as sales manager, and I knew one of the sales guys at a very personal level. We're good friends, still are. And first day, me and him went for a walk
Mhm.
because I said, listen, I just got to tell you something outside of everybody else. And he was like, yeah, sure. Goes right. You see, while I'm here, you see, 9 to 5, I'm not your friend. I said, because that's an awkward conversation to have, particularly when you're
Mhm.
working with friends and I'm senior to him. I
Mhm.
said, I need you to understand that between the hours of 9 and 5, I am treating you like everybody else. I will go through you if I have to. You're getting nothing special about this.
Mhm.
See, at 1 minute past 5, everything gets left at the door and we
Mhm.
can go for a pint. I
Mhm.
said, and we will never talk about work while we're outside as friends, and we will not talk about friend things while we're here at work. You have to be able, but I mean,
Boundaries.
uh, boundaries. But again, if I had had that conversation with him in the office, that would have been very awkward for him. But
Yes.
at the same time, because he asked me, he goes, well, what, like, we've been out for a pint 2 days before. He goes,
Mhm.
why didn't you have this conversation with us? Because that's the standard I'm setting. I'm not going to talk
Mhm.
to you about work
Yeah.
while, because like you play with my kids, like, your kids play with my kids. We're not having this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
at my house because it's not the place for it. And so setting tone, all these things,
Yeah.
massively important. So
And so many don't, especially when there has been, especially like over here and in most smaller kind of places where you do have near 1.5 degree, as I describe it, of separation over here,
oh yes,
you
yes.
know, and it can be so difficult to keep those boundaries that don't then spill over into the
Hmm.
personal. And not enough people have those sorts of conversations in terms of laying the boundary that then also you're protecting the trust that you have with those people. There isn't then the betrayal, or at least you've not created the environment where it was reasonable for them to feel it was a betrayal. You've been
Oh,
direct, you've told them, and it's then down to them whether they continue to respect that or not.
absolutely. I mean, you have to build. And it's such a Northern Irish thing. I think Americans. I mean, the Americans don't do much better than us. Hi, America. Right. But, but in terms of we get so much right in terms of the way we treat employees, the way we treat, the way we do work, the protections that are in place. But our communication style in Britain, UK, and Ireland, all of it is so bad. It is so
We like to
I've
talk
done
around things.
yeah, and if you have you've worked in HR for years, you know what happens if when I say I went to a good friend of mine and said, right, me and you, we're going for a walk, right? See you, I'm going to go through you for a shortcut because I have to, because it's working hours, right? It's a thing. This is what's wrong. This is what we're fixing. This, very, very formal. And when I had to be aggressive, I had to be aggressive with that, And everybody instantly, when I speak to people about this in particularly in Northern Ireland, they go, Jesus, you can't have any friends. And semi-true, I suppose. But, dancing around a problem has never fixed it, ever, in the history of problems. But all that happens is you go home with your head clouded because all this stuff has been going on, all these, oh, she said that, and that's maybe what they were thinking, and it fills up your brain, and suddenly you have no mental bandwidth. You're sitting there at 9 o'clock, a half step off a breakdown. You can't even speak to your partner about it because you've got so much going on in your head. Whereas if you just had the conversation, it's never as bad or as good as you think it is, right? It never is. And it can always be resolved. Well, 99% of the time, there is a really quick way out of it if it's handled quickly enough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get to the point where you have to get involved. You know what I mean? And you have to, start doing actual intervention work. And I just don't see the value in dancing around things. And I mean, again, I come across as hyper aggressive to people sometimes when I challenge things and have these conversations. But it also means nobody is under any illusion about where they stand with me. I know everything that's going on that I need to know is going on. They're much clearer in what I'm expecting from them. I don't see how this is in any way a bad thing. I remember years ago, and I'm sure this story is not going to make the cut, by the way. But
we'll see. We'll see
what happens. So years ago, I was dating a Dutch girl, right? And she'd moved over here. She was doing her master's degree, and anyway, it got to the point the first time we went over to Holland to see her parents, right? And her father, Jan, now this guy is 6'6", skinhead, brick shit house. I am terrified, right? I am literally, giant, borderline white supremacist looking guy picking us up at the airport, So we get back to the house, and so I said to him, I said, Jan, where's the spare room? And he was like, spare room? And I was like, yeah, I'll put my bag up. And he goes, you sleep with my daughter back in Belfast? Right? I've met this man 20 minutes ago. You know what I mean? This is the first conversation I'm having with him. And he was just so matter of fact about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't. We've
only looked at each other.
Yeah, we hold hands and we read literature by a fire, because there's something in the back of my head going, I'm not admitting to that with this girl's fat. No way, not happening, right? Yeah. But really, very good example of that point where he's like, well, you're grown-ups. And I think that communication is so important to maintaining healthy relationships. It's awkward at the start. If teens aren't used to it, it's so hard to do. But once you get in the flow of it.
So how do you then say, because you've got different people in a team who maybe aren't used to your direct approach and maybe not all respond well to it, how do you then deal with that?
I give them license to do it. At the start of a meeting, particularly, depending on the meeting, and what the purpose is, if it's marketing, design work, UI, technical stuff, whatever the meeting is, I say, look, when someone comes in with us, I always want to say to them, look, you see, when you think I'm wrong, I want you to tell me. because there is no point. I said, I'm going to be mightily pissed off if something goes wrong and you tell me that you saw that coming 3 months ago. I want to know about it 3 months ago. You might be wrong. We might not agree. And it's sort of having that awkward conversation day one and setting that standard of expectation out and saying, look, we're not always going to agree. That's fine. I would like to get on with you. But you see, when you think I'm doing something wrong or another team's doing something wrong, I am never going to come after you for asking a question.
So a lot of business owners will say that. How do you show that you actually mean it?
It's following up on that, right? It's back to the do what you say you will do thing. And then making sure that that behavior is respected in every single meeting. And sometimes that's me challenging them and saying, look, I don't understand. And like setting out the standard of communication that I want from people I work with, I have to give to them. And if you're not doing it, like if I'm in a place where I'm in a meeting and someone gives me a suggestion about product or UI or something, I go, that's dead on. You know, well, then that just teaches them to shut up. Well, goes, well, he told me he wanted me to have an opinion, but he clearly doesn't. Now, again, there are lines within that, you know, because occasionally people will you know, can derail a meeting, you know, and you say, look, so you investigate it a wee bit, you have a conversation around it, and if it's something that's going to take up more time than maybe been allocated for the main meeting, you say, look, I'll tell you what we're going to do, making a note about this, I want to pick up with you outside of this meeting just to really understand what you're trying to do, and then we'll get everybody involved again. So again, it's just maintaining that and saying, look, I really appreciate that feedback, and then don't take them into a fishbowl and rip their head off for having an opinion you didn't agree with.
Or just give them the silent treatment and exclude them.
Oh, Jesus, no. What's the point? Is someone going to explain the point to me in just getting on like you're meeting your ex? You know, I just don't get it. It confuses me. But you have to be the consistency that you want to see from people. It also makes it so much easier if you're just being yourself and maintaining this, and then people can come and challenge you. And you know, you have to have, like I said, you have to have structure around it. You can't let it derail the purpose of a meeting. But if you say you're going to circle back, you know, say, like, I want to meet with you offline and really pick this apart because I think you might be onto something, and then we'll get everybody. If you don't do that, then you look like a liar. Well, because you are a liar. So you've got to be good to your word on that, and pick people up and make sure that you're understanding. Because at the end of it, you might still decide to go the way that you. That's the joy of leadership, right? We might still do the thing that I said. But again, communicating that with someone who's had the idea, so listen, I know where you're coming from. On this occasion, we're still going to do this. However, I really appreciate you actually bringing this to my attention because it's got me thinking about a few other things. I'm going to bring you in on those conversations because I actually really like the way you know, because challenging ideas should be rewarded. Fundamentally, I can, you know, maybe the degree of neurospiciness that I have, I can be very set in what I want and what I want to achieve and what I want. And so for someone to come up and challenge me and put me on the spot, I need that. I need someone, you know, like even Matt there, you know, he helps me with the Unfounded stuff. He's very good at saying, like, Stuart, it's mental, mate. Don't be doing it. Do this. Like, let's think about this. Because I need that sometimes because anybody can rabbit hole. And so if somebody's willing to have that dialogue, that's who I want to work with. I want to work with people who have enough about them to go, well, because it shows me that they're thinking outside of just what they're being told. They're not being robots. But second of all, they've got a bit of get up and go, which is ultimate. That should be rewarded. That should be championed. And then the knock-on effect of that is that the other people in the team see that behavior is being championed and they feel more...
that it's real.
we talk about, you're aware of the aggregation of marginal gains, right? The small wins, right? And you build your entire culture has to be built around that, but your culture is how you show up. So if you show up every day and let people be honest and have opinions and reward opinions and build that open communication style, you can't do. That's not a siloed thing, though. That's a day-to-day culture that you're imbibing in whatever you're doing, and you bring that with you and how you show up. So it's reward what is good, and never publicly trash people when they're bad.
All right, as we come towards the end of this recording, what's one thread of trust you hope listeners and viewers will carry forward?
You're going to make me repeat myself. You know what I'm going to say. Do what you say you do in everything. Like, I like thinking about what I'm trying to do in terms of all the businesses, right? I mean, the number one reason that I actually set out into my own sphere, like I didn't just stay in employed work, because I was technical sales and I was doing pretty well. You know, the money was coming in, pretty well. Everything was paid for. I was living a comfortable life. And I decided to throw all that away. Right. And that, when I look back on that time, this kind of uni to mid 30s, the thing that always made me quit, right? It was the culture, right? There was something in the culture of the place that I was working in that didn't sit with me, and I knew I needed a change, right? And that could be any number of things, from the way management performed, again, as we talk about what they said they were going to do and what actually happened, was a gross misalignment, or just generally, sort of toxic working practices, or a litany of different things. But the thing about, and I talk about it as a founder with the Unfounded stuff, but generally speaking, in anything I've ever done, is you've got to show up consistently and honestly. Like, those are the two things, right? Because then you get known effectively as somebody who will do what they say they will do, somebody who is trustworthy, somebody who doesn't tell tales, somebody who is a good broker, right? Is a good player within whatever they do, and lead with kindness. Assume kindness first. What is the quote from Deep Blue Sea? Remember that terrible shark action movie from the early noughties? Ice-T, LL Cool J was on it. Something. I was like, walk quietly and carry a big stick, right? So that's the thing, is, because you get found out. I think particularly in the modern day, you get found out much quicker than you ever. There's so much online. There's so much information available.
It's hard to hide.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if you scroll back 15 years on my Facebook, it's weird, right? Nothing is going to get me cancelled in the modern day, but I was just strange, like, But there's 15 years of history of me on the internet, whereas before that, you could get away with being a bit of a bullshit merchant, and just you presented one version of yourself, and the cold hard reality was a bit different. I think generally we should always be leading with kindness. We should always be leading with honesty, and then promoting open communication. And if you do that, but you have to practice it. You can't say you promote it back to the big corporate thing. You can't put a flyer up and say, "Oh, we support open communication," and then slap everybody senseless who has an idea. It doesn't work. So you've got to embody. And by the way, like, I mean, there's brands out there. There's people who have built careers on being jackasses, right? Who, on being obnoxious, on being, whatever they, But they're. I hate the idea of a personal brand. It confuses me slightly. But if
they're being true to who they are, they're not trying to mask and have a veil over who they actually are, that then leads to the inconsistencies and the not being a person of your word, and because you've got the inner battle going on, and also trying to keep up with lies and spin and all these things is just exhausting and difficult to remember.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, like I'm blessed with a terrible memory, right? I was laughing with Lena actually last. When see, I get right. Perfect example, right? This could have happened last night. This could have been 3 weeks ago. I have no real concept of time. But I laughed about the fact that I don't remember really a lot of things, but I don't need to, right? Because, and the reason I say that is because if you ask me a question today, I will give you an answer, right? I will forget we had this conversation. It will go out of my head, and you can ask me in 6 months' time the exact same question, and I am almost guaranteed to give you an almost identical answer, because I don't care. I don't care how people view me in a lot of ways. Like I am who I am, right? There's 7 billion people on the planet. Some people like me, some people hate me. That's just the numbers we play, right? So I don't need to remember what I told people too often, because I will tell them it again. And if you're being honest and you're being trustworthy and you're being if you present as yourself every day, then you don't need to have a good memory, because I don't need to remember what I told folk, because I'm never making stuff up. I don't. It confuses me, people who do it, because they get caught out very, very quickly. In the modern day. So just be honest and don't be a swear word.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Like, I mean, I think if you're honest and you're consistent and you're not a dick, although at the same time, always remember this: everybody is the bad guy in someone else's story. And I live by that. Like, I know there are some people in this world who will swear I am the nicest person because I've done a lot for them, I've helped them, I've been there for them, I've been there. There are other people who will say I am their number one enemy on earth, right? And everything in between, right? For various reasons. And both are true, because both people got the version of me that they deserved, right? And I think that's quite an important thing, is that, like, you can't please everybody. You can't do it. I had this conversation about messaging. I know we're running on a bit, but we had a conversation about, obviously, some of the stuff I put online can be relatively confrontational, right? You know, it can be relatively abrasive. It's not for everybody. There's certainly some of the LinkedIn police don't love me. Fine. But I had this conversation with a guy over in England. He does a lot of work in data centers. And he was talking to me about this, and he said, look, I just don't know how you do that. Like, how you have he's always worried about, he's going to put something up that offends, someone of his, that he's trying to reach out to, his kind of core demographic. I said, well, yeah, but look at it the other way, right? Particularly what I'm doing with the Unfounded, like, if I can put something up that will low level offend someone, fair enough. They're not my people. However, they walk past me. They don't care. However, there is a group of people who, if I put up something very sanitized and very nice and very LinkedIn friendly, they'll look at that and go, well, there's another load of corporate bullshit, and they'll walk past me. So the people who are my people walk past me because I sanitized it. And this is the thing, is that, and that's a tricky thing to come to terms with, is that, like, people might, like, I'm actually helping a company with a rebrand at the minute, and I am working not the lengths I go to, but they work in a very boring industry. A lot of compliance work, a lot of all this stuff, right? And so I went and did the competitive analysis of everything, and I was like, well, we need to kind of go up against these guys now, and their website fit is identical to everybody else's, and I'm like, right, well, maybe you want to be a bit different, like, just put an edge to it, right? Because if you have an edge, and these are the people who work there are very vibrant, they're very entertaining people. and they've got personalities, and I'm like, right, we need to get those personalities out into the
Yeah.
world, so that because people buy
Yeah.
stories. People, we don't buy websites, we buy the people behind them. So if you've got a personality, let it out, and don't be afraid of it. Yeah, I mean, as I say many times, if you have white supremacy things going on, hide that, like hide that deep,
Yeah,
deeper, and see,
that's not what we're
yeah,
talking about here. You know,
and speak
it's
to
your
someone so
character,
you
your
can fix
personality.
that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. You need support there.
yeah,
You need some kind of help there.
yeah, there's a medication, but like but at the same time, if you are a part, I mean, I've come on. We did a call. I was doing a call and advisory for Barclays for energy strategy. There's a whole incubator thing I'm involved in, and we had an hour. This is like helping to kind of steer policy on renewable energy, right? And I'm on a call with 16 people, and there was only me and one other guy spoke, and I just didn't understand it. I was kind of going, "You have an hour. You have 1 hour to get what you need to say said. Why are you muted?"
Yes.
And you're going like, it baffles me. So
Can be a mix of disengagement, a mix of just exhaustion, a mix of just not wanting to be there, and
but
the
then why join the
mediums, and
call?
yeah.
Why join the call? Be the
Sometimes it's
glorious
a case of you've got to be on that call. I want to see you on that call.
but be the glorious jackass that you are. Like we all have things to say, and I think that comes across. I know we've really gone off the topic of trust, but if people want to buy you, right?
Yeah.
Not in the taken kind of way, but if people want if people buy people,
Yeah.
they need to know who you are.
Exactly.
Which means you've got to show up as who you are. And if you mask it too much, if you obviously you have to put on a certain professional veneer. Like I was at an event at the House of Lords a couple of months ago. I was not dressed like this. When in Rome, do as the Romans.
Yeah.
And there's a certain element of that. But in your day to day, you've got to be yourself, because it's exhausting trying to be someone else. And people buy you, and they buy into who you are if you're consistently being yourself, and you just keep doing that, because they're like, oh, I know what I get with Stuart. It's borderline offensive and should definitely be reported to HR, but at least you know what it is. Like, nobody is shocked by me, who knows me. Like, they're like, oh, yeah, it's just Stuart. I think that's kind of like a universal saying these days. Yeah, don't worry, it's just Stuart. He's,
And on that note, thank you so much for being on Weaving Trust. Where can people find you and follow your work or get in contact with you?
Well, on Friday I should be at. No,
I'll be walking the streets.
You're going to share my calendar, but no. I suppose that, I mean, the most fun one is the Unfounded. That's the one that is where all the fun things happen. So the unfounded.com. And then there is the Net Zero Hero coming. If you're involved in any way in renewable sustainability, ESG strategy, or you are a company who wants to find the suppliers who can do that better, then it's the netzerohero.co. I'm very rarely on there. That is a platform. So come to the Unfounded and give me invalid opinions. Fight me. Yeah.
Everything ready. Get your gloves on.
Good. Give me terrible opinions so I can make a mockery of you. No, but they. So I think of that. Have you seen that? You can't keep those in. It's my favorite YouTube short, because again, I've got the two young kids, right? And it's a guy comes up, with a banana behind the guy, and he goes, "Put your hands up. This is a mockery." And the other guy goes, "Don't you mean a robbery?" He's like, "Don't you mean a robbery? Don't you mean a robbery?" No, I have
Oh.
a four. I like Oscar's 4 now, and he runs around the house with a banana doing this, and it
Oh.
just it entirely like. I mean, it's nobody else gets it. You come into my house, he'll run up to you with a banana and go, "Put your hands up. This is a mockery," and you're like, "What are you doing, child?" Nobody. But it keeps me entertained. I just he has no chance with me as his father. I don't think.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
You're most welcome. Good luck editing this to something that is presentable to the public.
Thank you for listening or watching Weaving Trust Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you hear future episodes. Each episode will have a different guest, and we'll be following them on their journey about how trust has shaped the way they lead, work, and live.